Most people are not who they think they are. They believe they are rational. They believe they are in control. They believe that when tested, truly tested, they will rise. But the brutal truth is this: most people have never truly looked at themselves. Not really. Not the way a philosopher looks. Not the way a warrior must. Today we are going to do something that very few people are willing to do. We are going to look, directly, unflinchingly, at 10 brutal truths about human nature. These are not comfortable ideas. They are not meant to be. They are meant to wake something in you that has been asleep. Stay with me. Because what you are about to hear could change the way you see yourself, and every person around you, forever. We live in an age that has made weakness invisible. Social media tells you that your feelings are always valid. That comfort is a right. That you should never have to sit with pain, boredom, or failure for more than a few seconds before seeking relief. And so people have grown soft, not in body but in mind. They react before they think. They seek approval before they act. They chase pleasure and call it purpose. They avoid discomfort and call it wisdom. The Stoics saw this pattern clearly, not in the 21st century but thousands of years ago. Because human nature does not change. The weaknesses of the Roman citizen and the weaknesses of the modern man are the same weaknesses. And Marcus Aurelius, emperor, soldier, and philosopher, wrote in his private journal, words that were never meant to be published. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. He did not write this as advice for others. He wrote it as a reminder to himself, because even Marcus Aurelius had to fight his own human nature every single day. That is the first thing you must understand before we begin. These truths are not about other people. They are about you. They are about me. They are about all of us. Truth number 1, you are not as rational as you think. Humans believe they make decisions through logic and reason. Science tells a different story. Research in behavioral psychology reveals that up to 95% of our daily decisions are driven not by conscious thought, but by unconscious emotion, habit, and bias. You do not choose your anger. It chooses you. You do not decide to be afraid. Fear arrives before thought. The Stoics called this the first movement, the involuntary emotional reaction that precedes reason. And they did not judge you for having it. What they judged was what came next. Epictetus wrote, "It is not things that trouble us but our judgments about things." The emotion is not the problem. Believing the emotion is truth, that is the problem. When you feel a strong emotion rising, the flash of anger, the surge of fear, the sting of jealousy, your brain is not giving you a report on reality. It is giving you a report on your history, on your wounds, on your conditioning. The world is not what you feel it to be in that moment. The world is what it is. And the gap between the feeling and the fact, that gap is where your freedom lives. The lesson: when a strong emotion arrives, do not act immediately. Pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, is this feeling an accurate map of reality or is it simply a feeling? That question, asked consistently, is the beginning of wisdom. Truth number 2, comfort is the enemy of growth. The human nervous system is wired for one primary goal: survival. And survival, in biological terms, means conserving energy, avoiding pain, seeking the familiar. Your brain does not distinguish between the discomfort of danger and the discomfort of growth. To the nervous system they feel identical, and so it resists both with equal force. But the life you want, the discipline, the strength, the depth of character, none of it lives in comfort. All of it lives on the other side of resistance. Seneca wrote to his young friend Lucilius, "It is not that I am brave but that I know what to ignore." Every time you choose comfort over growth, your brain registers it. The neural pathway of avoidance grows stronger. The next time difficulty arrives, the pull toward ease is slightly more powerful. And so, slowly, almost invisibly, a person shrinks. Not in one dramatic moment of cowardice, but in 1,000 small retreats, each one invisible, each one justified. This is not a character flaw. It is biology. But biology is not destiny. The lesson: deliberately seek small discomforts every day. Cold water. Silence. Hard conversations. The book instead of the screen. Not because suffering is noble, but because voluntary discomfort builds the muscle of discipline. Every time you choose the harder thing, you are casting a vote for the person you are becoming. Truth number 3, most people are controlled by what others think of them. Here is a question that will reveal everything about how free you actually are. What would you do differently, in your work, your relationships, your life, if you knew with absolute certainty that no one was watching? For most people the answer is, a great deal. We are social creatures. Our brains evolved in tribal environments where social rejection was literally a death sentence. The fear of judgment is ancient, primal, and extraordinarily powerful. It is woven into the architecture of the nervous system itself. But the Stoics named this trap clearly. They called it seeking external goods, reputation, applause, approval, instead of internal goods, virtue, wisdom, integrity. Epictetus asked, "How long will you wait before you demand the best of yourself?" Marcus Aurelius spent his reign as one of the most powerful men on earth, surrounded by people who wanted something from him. He wrote in his journal, "I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others." Think about that. You love yourself, and yet you trust a stranger's fleeting impression of you more than your own deepest knowledge of your character. That is the prison most people live in. And the door was never locked. The lesson: before any significant decision, ask yourself, am I doing this because it is right, or am I doing this because of how it will appear? The answer will tell you whether you are free or captive. Truth number 4, you will rationalize almost anything. The human mind is not primarily a truth-seeking machine. It is primarily a justification machine. Psychologists call this motivated reasoning, the process by which the mind works backward from a desired conclusion and constructs arguments to support it. We do not reason toward truth. We reason toward comfort. We decide first, with emotion, and then we explain it carefully, logically, convincingly to ourselves and to others. You see this everywhere. The person who knows they should change, but finds 1,000 reasons why today is not the right day. The person who stays in a damaging situation because they have crafted a perfect story about why it is not really damaging. The person who avoids their highest potential because they have constructed an elaborate philosophy that explains why ambition is vanity. Epictetus had been a slave. He had no illusions about the stories men tell themselves. He wrote, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." The word first is everything. Decide who you are. Then act from that identity, not from the feeling of the moment and not from the story your mind constructs to protect you from discomfort. The lesson: keep a journal. Write down not just your plans but your reasons. Then weeks later return and read them. You will see the rationalizations clearly in cold ink, the places where you were not reasoning but escaping. And once you see them, you cannot unsee them. Truth number 5, people fear death, but live as if they have forever. This may be the most peculiar contradiction in all of human psychology. Ask any person if they are aware they will die. They will say yes. Ask them if this awareness shapes how they spend each day. The silence that follows is the answer. Seneca spent much of his philosophical life wrestling with time. He watched it squandered around him, by rich men, by powerful men, by intelligent men, and he was appalled. He wrote, "We are not given a short life, we waste it." Think of the conversations you have put off, the apologies you have not made, the work you have not begun, the relationships you have not deepened, the version of yourself you have not yet become. All of it deferred. Not because you lack time, but because you behave as though time is infinite, when every single day you know with certainty that it is not. The Stoic practice of memento mori, remember that you will die, was not a morbid obsession. It was a tool for clarity. A way of burning away triviality and revealing what actually matters. A way of making the present moment heavy with meaning. The medieval monk had a skull on his desk not to frighten himself, but to focus himself. To remember that the day he was living was irreplaceable. The lesson: every morning before the noise of the day begins, sit for 1 minute and acknowledge, this day is finite. This life is finite. What would you do today if you knew you had very few left? Then do that. Truth number 6, discipline is not willpower, it is architecture. This is one of the most important things modern psychology has discovered about human behavior, and one of the least understood. People believe that discipline is willpower. That the people who exercise every day, who study every night, who resist temptation consistently, that these people simply have more willpower than others. They do not. Willpower is a finite resource. It depletes with every decision you make. This is why you can resist every temptation in the morning and surrender to all of them by midnight. It is not weakness. It is neuroscience. The Stoics did not call it willpower. They called it prohairesis, the faculty of moral choice, and they understood that it had to be trained through consistent practice, not summoned through sheer force of will in the heat of the moment. Marcus Aurelius rose before dawn every morning. He did not do this because he was always inspired. He did it because he had structured his life so that inspiration was not required. The system carried him when the feeling did not. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. Not, try to be one. Not, Feel motivated to be one. Be one. The doing precedes the feeling, always. The lesson: do not rely on motivation. Design your environment. Remove friction from the behaviors you want. Add friction to the behaviors you do not. Put the book where the phone used to be. Sleep in your exercise clothes. The architecture of your environment will shape your behavior more powerfully than your willpower ever can. Truth number 7. Suffering is inevitable, but meaning is a choice. Viktor Frankl survived the Nazi concentration camps. He lost nearly everything. And in the ruins of everything, he made an observation that would become one of the most important psychological insights of the 20th century. He noticed that the people who survived longest, in spirit if not always in body, were those who had found something to live for. A purpose. A person waiting for them. A future they were determined to reach. And those who lost their sense of meaning, regardless of their physical condition, often simply stopped. This is deeply Stoic. The Stoics did not promise a painless life. They promised something far more valuable, a life in which pain could not break you. Epictetus was born into slavery. His master broke his leg as a demonstration of power. And yet he became one of the most luminous philosophical minds in human history, teaching in a small room in Nicopolis to students who came from across the empire to hear him speak. He did not deny his suffering. He refused to let his suffering define his identity. The Stoics drew a sharp line between what happens to you and what you make of what happens to you. The first is not yours to control. The second is entirely yours. The lesson: when difficulty arrives, stop asking why this is happening to you. Start asking what this experience is asking of you. Every hardship is an invitation to grow, to clarify your values, to discover what you are made of. The answer to that question is not given to you. It is chosen. Truth number 8. The ego is your greatest enemy. There is a version of you that needs to be right, that needs to be admired, that needs to be seen as competent, important, powerful. This is not your authentic self. This is your ego, and it is a brilliant, relentless saboteur. The ego avoids feedback because feedback threatens the image. It avoids failure because failure exposes limitation. It avoids genuine connection because genuine connection requires vulnerability, and vulnerability feels like danger to a structure built entirely around self-protection. The ego does not want you to grow. Growth requires the admission that you are not already complete. And that admission is precisely what the ego exists to prevent. Marcus Aurelius sat at the apex of the Roman Empire, the most powerful position in the known world, and wrote private reminders to himself to remain humble, to remember his smallness, to resist the seduction of his own importance. He wrote, "The first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit. The second is to look things in the face and know them for what they are. Not what you wish them to be. Not what flatters your self-image. What they are." The lesson: actively seek criticism from people you respect. Your ego will resist this with everything it has. Thank those people anyway. The information that the ego most wants to hide from you is precisely the information you most need. Truth number 9. Most of what you worry about will never happen. The human brain has a built-in negativity bias. It evolved in an environment where the cost of ignoring a threat was death, and so it learned to scan for danger constantly, to catastrophize, to imagine the worst possible outcome of every uncertain situation. For our ancestors on the savannah, this was adaptive. One false negative, one failure to notice the predator, and you did not survive to pass on your genes. But for modern humans navigating careers, relationships, and social dynamics, this ancient threat detection system fires constantly at things that cannot actually kill you. A difficult conversation, a public presentation, a risk worth taking. The system cannot tell the difference. To the brain, they all feel like the lion in the grass. Seneca described a practice he called the premeditation of evils, deliberately imagining the worst that could happen. It sounds like a path to deeper anxiety. It is the opposite. He wrote, "All things are alien to us, time alone is ours." By clearly visualizing the worst realistic outcome, and then asking yourself honestly whether you could survive it, adapt to it, rebuild from it, the fear loses its power. You discover that the imagined catastrophe is almost never as devastating as the fear of it. That you are more resilient than your anxiety believes you to be. The lesson: when anxiety grips you, write down the worst realistic outcome. Then write down what you would do if that outcome came to pass. Almost always, you will find that you could survive it. And that discovery, that quiet, earned confidence, is freedom. Truth number 10. Character is built in the moments no one is watching. This is the final truth. And in many ways, it is the most important. Character is not what you do on stage. It is not the post you make, the reputation you build, or the image you project. Character is what you do in the darkness, when there is no applause, no audience, no reward. It is how you treat people who can do nothing for you. It is whether you keep your commitments when keeping them costs you something. It is the small choices, made 10,000 times in private, that build or erode the person you actually are. Every time you do the right thing when no one will ever know, you become slightly more the person you want to be. Every time you do the convenient thing, the easy thing, the thing that serves only the moment, you become slightly less. These are not dramatic moments. They are quiet moments. They are the moments that add up to a life. Marcus Aurelius had already reached the pinnacle of earthly power. There was no higher position to ascend to, no approval left to earn. And yet he continued to rise before dawn, to hold himself to an impossible standard, to write in private the demands he placed on his own soul, not for the world, for himself, because he understood that the only person whose opinion of him he would have to live with every waking moment for the rest of his life was his own. He wrote, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." The lesson: choose one thing you do when no one is watching that you are not proud of. Change it, not because anyone will ever know, but because you will know. And you are the only judge whose verdict you carry with you always. These 10 truths are not comfortable. They were never meant to be. Comfort is the currency of a small life. Truth is the currency of a great one. The Stoics were not pessimists. They were not cynics. They were realists who had stared into the full darkness of human nature, including their own, and had come back with something extraordinary: hope. Not a naive hope. Not a hope that the world will change or that people will become perfect. But the hope that you specifically, can choose a different way. That in a world of reaction you can choose to pause. In a world of ego you can choose to see clearly. In a world of comfort you can choose to grow. In a world of fear you can choose to act. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations in the middle of war, plague, and political treachery. He did not write them because he had conquered his human nature. He wrote them because he was fighting it, every single day, just as you must fight yours. And the fight is the point, not the victory, not the arrival. The daily, disciplined, dignified act of choosing the better version of yourself over the easier one. That is Stoicism. That is philosophy. That is what it means to be a warrior, not in body but in mind. Remember who you are, and then become more. If these ideas resonated with you, if something in you stirred while you listened, then you are already on the path. Subscribe to Warrior Philosophy. Every week we go deeper into Stoicism, human psychology, and the ancient wisdom that still has the power to transform a modern life. Leave a comment below with the truth that hit you hardest today. Until next time, stay disciplined, stay awake, stay philosophical. Warrior Philosophy.